Hey everyone, it's Fentoni. This is going to be everything you need to know about the brand new Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon, and its current state of production. It has been a while since I've made any Game of Thrones videos, and since the series ended I haven't really made that many. If you've been watching my videos, you know how I felt about the final season. I felt it was a massive disappointment and it's tarnished the legacy of the show. It's going to be remembered for that ending and the fact the show used to be good. And I feel it's made a lot of people less excited for the prequel. But once all the news drops, I think that's all going to change. Once we start seeing some Targaryens and dragons, people are going to love it again. Imagine what it would have been like if Season 8 was everything that we hoped for. Or at least better. Imagine the hype for this prequel. If you have been here for a while, you know that Game of Thrones was the main topic on the channel for a few years. And it's going to continue as a massive part of this channel. I'm going to cover all the prequel news. And of course, once the episodes drop, I'll do videos on that as well. If you want to get all the Game of Thrones news, including House of the Dragon, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to turn all the notifications on to get all the videos. But anyways, let's get on with this video. So what's House of the Dragon? Basically, it's a Targaryen prequel based on George R. R. Martin's book that he released back in 2018, Fire and Blood. It's set 300 years before Game of Thrones, and I believe he's going to release a second part. I believe in the second volume it's going to include the rest of the Targaryen history, including Robert's Rebellion, which sets up Jon and Dany's story in Game of Thrones. I'm not sure when that book is going to get released. Of course, George R. R. Martin is still working on The Winds of Winter, but I would love to see the full history of House Targaryen on a HBO show. Continue with House of the Dragon based on Fire and Blood Part 1 for several years, and maybe if it's possible, put Fire and Blood Part 2 on screen. Show us the rest of the history, including Robert's Rebellion. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen. All we know is House of the Dragon will cover Fire and Blood Part 1. The first volume only covers around 150 years, from Aegon the Conqueror to the aftermath of the Dance of Dragons, which supposedly is going to be a massive part of this series. Basically, to sum it up in one sentence, it's a Targaryen civil war. Targaryens fighting over the Iron Throne, with dragons. There's going to be a lot of Dragon Rider battles, and I can see why HBO picked this up, because dragons equal money, and the other prequel wouldn't have them. You're probably asking, what's the other prequel? In fact, HBO has been working on several prequels. They were working on about 4 or 5 prequels depending on who you ask. The number does vary, but they only greenlit one. There was no title for that prequel, and it was only greenlit for a pilot episode, but it had a cast, and it filmed that pilot. The working title was Blood Moon, and it was going to be set thousands of years before Game of Thrones, and cover the Long Night and the early history of Westeros, well before the Targaryens even arrived in the country. You could call it a House Stark prequel, but HBO cancelled it, and on the same day they announced House of the Dragon, with the tagline, Fire Will Reign. You could argue that House Targaryen are the most popular family in the series, or at least tied of House Stark. And of course the dragons are incredibly popular as well. They're a huge spectacle and they took a large chunk of the CGI budget in the final season. I felt HBO have chose this show because the dragons and Targaryens are going to be more familiar to casual fans than, let's say, the Long Night prequel. It's a safer option. It's going to be their first prequel. You can't really take any chances, especially after the final season. And from reports, it seems that they weren't too happy with the Long Night pilot. But maybe sometime in the future we'll get more prequels, set over different time periods. Maybe that Long Night prequel will happen in some form. But House Targaryen is the best place to start in my opinion. But just because the series is going to be called House of the Dragon, and it's going to be focused around them, doesn't mean the other families ain't going to get time to shine. We're going to see House Stark, House Lannister, and all the other houses. But here's a thought for you guys. How are they going to do this show in terms of characters? Because it's set over 150 years. There's many generations of Targaryens. If they tried to adapt the book word for word, they'd be changing main characters every few episodes. Which is possible and it can work, but I don't think that's the best idea for a Game of Thrones prequel. As one of Game of Thrones' biggest strengths was the fact it had a large ensemble cast that you watch grow up over the years. Like I said earlier, it seems like it's going to focus on the build up to the dance and the civil war itself. So perhaps that's where the main chunk of the episodes will happen. But I would love to see Aegon's conquest. Potentially that could be a full series. But there's a chance it might just be a prologue. Perhaps in some sort of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring style, where we get about 10 minutes explaining what's going on. But I know a lot of people want to see Aegon. Like I said earlier, we know very little about this series, but HBO have ordered it straight to series. They've ordered the first 10 episodes. I'm not sure how many seasons we'll have, but I think we can get at least 5, maybe more. The series will be co-created by George R. R. Martin and writer Ryan Condal, from original concept by Game of Thrones writer Brian Cogman, who worked on the original series. He planned out the concept for this series, but his idea was shelved, and he's working with Amazon now on their new Lord of the Rings series, which of course I'm covering on the channel, and if you guys want to know everything about that, here's a link to a video I've done recently. Ryan Condal will be the showrunner alongside the Game of Thrones director Mikhail Sapochnik, and Mikhail will direct the first episode and more in the future. He's directed some of the best episodes, including Hard Home and Battle of the Bastards. George R. R. Martin has told us that he's not writing any episodes until he finishes Winds of Winter, but I think he will in the future. He wrote episodes for Game of Thrones in the first 4 seasons, and once he left and the source material ran out, that's where the problem started. But with George R. R. Martin and Fire and Blood, this prequel has solid foundations. And of course, there's no Dan and Dave. David Benioff and Daniel Weiss are not here. They have nothing to do with this new series. Right now, we know nothing about the cast. It's set 300 years before Game of Thrones, and it spans 150 years. So characters like Melisandre and the Three-Eyed Raven might appear. There's been no reports that they've started filming yet, but I think it's going to happen this year. I'm not sure if they're going to return to Belfast in Northern Ireland. Of course, that was the main hub for Game of Thrones, and I'd like to see that happen. But there hasn't been any confirmation of that yet. No release date yet, but here's my prediction. Next year, April 2021, just in time to compete with The Witcher Season 2, which at the moment is the big fantasy show. But I want you guys to post in the comments below how you feel about the Game of Thrones prequel. Are you hyped for House of the Dragon, or has Season 8 ruined it? And who would you cast as members of House Targaryen? I am doing videos very similar to this for all the topics on my channel. I've finished The Witcher Season 2, Fantastic Beasts 3, Amazon Lord of the Rings, Netflix The Last Airbender. I still need to do His Dark Materials Season 2, and of course the Chronicles of Narnia, which I'm very excited for. It's going to be a very busy year for the channel. It seems like most of the stuff's going to air next year, but we're going to find out a lot about the new shows this year. If you want to get all the news for all the topics, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell. Make sure you turn the notifications on to get all the videos, because sometimes YouTube doesn't always give every video to every single subscription. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Click here to learn everything about The Lord of the Rings on Amazon. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.